Hi everyone. First of all, I'm going to talk about AI that needs development, and it will be a highly subjective and highly opinionated presentation about my learning curve. So it's not going to be anything that you would expect. I'm not going to give you secrets, just what I have learned and what my journey was. Who am I? So as Zoltan nicely addressed me, so I'm a staff AI product manager here at CropTalks, and I'm also the co-maintainer of Craft Agents open source library and the tool, which you can find on GitHub. I worked in Ericsson for more than 8 years, and then I also worked for Bosch for almost 6 years, and now I'm working for CropTalks. The last 1 year was pretty crazy. A lot of work with AI, and basically I'm trying to summarize that journey. What you should not expect from today's meeting is that I'm not going to give you a framework how to work with AI. I'm not going to give you architecture diagrams unless you really want to see some tools. And I'm not going to really deep dive like whether AI is going to replace developers or not. The time will tell. I will just tell you exactly how switching from regular standard software development to AI-native development, so-called vibe coding, transferred into harness engineering and agentic development. So here you can see my journey. It's 7 steps, starting from using Cloud Code in VS Code, and then at the end, like going fully autonomous with the AI. First step, of course, I don't know, like I have used VS Code and before VS Code Vim mainly to develop code. And when I first get introduced to Cloud Code, I was mainly using it as the plugin in VS Code, mainly because I was really attached to the IDE. I always wanted to see the code that the agents are changing, and I wanted to see the diffs myself, click on it and see exactly which files it updated, why it updated, and etc. It was working fine.
But still, I was spending most of my time going through the files in the editor. It was slowing me down, in a sense. In Craft, we had this month in January, which was called the Impossible Goals Month. The main idea behind it that everybody in the company, and everybody, not just developers, but everybody, had to come up with impossible goals in their field and make it real, or at least try to make it real using AI agents. And it's fine if you failed, but the importance was try it and let's see what the AI is capable of doing. And during this month, I realized as well that using the IDE is slowing me down. So I need to trust more what the AI is doing, but I had to switch. I had to change my mindset. And I had to fight with the muscle memory to always check the diffs and see what are the changes in the code base. And the next step was that early December, as a research preview, we created a Craft Agent terminal user interface application. It was really similar to Cloud Code and Gemini CLI or Codex CLI or Aider, for example. We just wanted to create a CLI tool based on Cloud Agent SDK just to see what the technology is capable of. We started using it first, developing it with Cloud Code itself. And then later, when the application was mature enough, I started using the application itself to develop itself. And it helped a lot to understand the strengths and the limitations of it. When I was using exclusively our own tool, I realized that the terminal interface, although I have worked in telecommunication for quite long, and as you know, or you didn't, but terminals are super important in telecommunication. You always log into servers, you use SSH. So I was growing up, I was maturing in a terminal environment, and I really liked it. However, when you work with AI, your work speeds up, and you have to learn to work in parallel on multiple topics. And yes, there will be a lot of context switches that developers usually hate. However, I have been in product manager roles in my previous positions as well. So I had to cope with a lot of context switches. And this kind of endured me to be able to work with AI in this efficient way. But the terminal interface was limiting me. It's really hard to follow 5, 6, or even 7 or 8 parallel flows in a terminal. Of course, there are tools. You can use Screen, Tmux, BioBoo, and etc. But still, it's much harder in a terminal interface to really follow what's happening. Of course, you can set up like a huge screen with a lot of split screen terminals, but maybe it's just me. I was reaching my limit with the terminal. And also my CEO Balint had the same idea because he was always coming from the visual side of things. As you can see, CraftDocs is a beautifully crafted application on iOS, for example. So his word was always about visual appearance, and he didn't like the terminal interface. And I had to agree that, of course, there are limitations when it comes to parallelism in the terminal. Mainly if you want to oversee as a human, like what's really happening. So that's where he put together a prototype in Electron, basically to have a web-based desktop application. And I bought in the idea, so I joined him. I never worked with Electron before. I never worked with TypeScript before. He neither. So he's a proficient Swift developer, and I'm not saying super proficient, but I mainly worked in Python, C++ in whole my career. But then we jumped on, let's do it. Let's make it a nice UI and create a research preview on how we imagine working with AI should look like. And we started shipping. And because we didn't know exactly like how TypeScript works, probably even today, an experienced TypeScript developer would laugh at me. But we were able to craft the application piece by piece. And I will tell you what we learned and how did we manage it. Both of us are pretty senior when it comes to software development, and that was a benefit. So you will see where it is important to have seniority when working with AI. This is where I am now. So today I'm only working in Craft Agents. I do everything in Craft Agents, from ordering my food from Interfood, developing applications, developing Craft Agents itself, fixing GitHub issues, maintaining and cleaning out my Gmail personal inbox. Everything is done with AI and through AI. And you will see how it went through. So I learned, and during my career, I always learned the hard way. Maybe that's my signature. So with developing with AI, I burned myself many times, but I always believe that's when you learn the most. And what I realized at the end is planning is the job, not software development itself. Writing code is not the job anymore. The job is to figure it out, figure out the problem, figure out the proper solution, and create the idea how to fix that problem, and then plan. Create a plan, understand that plan, fine-tune that plan, and then ask the AI to execute the plan. I usually spend like 80% of my time on planning and researching, and only 20% on really executing the final plan. And then, of course, you do the testing as well. What I really learned developing Craft Agents is that if you want to have a stable product, you have to refactor every 2 to 3 weeks. So you just ship a lot of features, but then every 2 to 3 weeks, you have to stop a bit, spend some time on refactoring what you are delivering. Why? Because when you develop with AI, unfortunately, if you really do hard on vibe coding, then the AI is going to generate all sorts of problems in your code base. But what's really important that you have an overview of the architecture that you really want to have. And in this image, what's important is that the main or the core modules, the green ones, they should be rock solid. You should always review that it's exactly doing how it's supposed to do things. And the orange parts, they change frequently. They are maybe some small features, then come and go. But the core values of your application should be revisited time to time to make sure that the architectural drivers are still valid for those parts of the code. And it's really important to make sure that time to time you double check that everything still works as expected. No new code paths are introduced, and the flow of the source code is still exactly the same how you imagined. And with AI, refactoring is not super painful. It's still painful and still introduces bugs. However, you can do it in 1-2 days, in contrast how it was like 2-3 months before. And just asking the agent to create a plan is not planning. Planning is an iterative process. First, you have to understand the scope. You have to understand, like, what's the goal that you want to achieve exactly. Then, when you do the planning with the AI, you really have to review what's coming out of it. And you really have to build it up in your mind, a mental model, like what do you want to implement. And once that's done, you can really act as an architect, and you can really act as an expert and correct the mistakes that the AI does. For example, a really simple one, you plan a new feature, the AI creates a plan, and it says, okay, I need to modify 17 files and maybe around 40, 50 lines of changes. And then it should raise something in your mind, like, this feature, in my idea, it should not touch 17 files. So then you ask back, why are you touching 17 files? And then the AI says, yes, because there is this duplicate, there is that code, and etc. And then you realize, okay, now I need to do a refactor. And that's what meaning that the code you don't really impact, but the architecture should always be clean and no smells in it. That's really important working with AI. What's also really important is before you do anything, you implement a new feature, you should research. What are other projects are doing? How other projects are solving it? If you are working with Electron, look up other Electron projects, how they solve this issue in their code base. In open source, you can do it and the AI can check it. But even if it's not open source, you can ask the AI and it will give you some answers, essentially. It may take 1 or 2 days, but it is worth it. So even if you spend 2 days on researching a topic, you are building up the context, not for the AI really, but for yourself. So you understand what you want to achieve. And when the AI does the mistake, you can, please stop. Don't do this. Do it the other way. It's super important. And yes, you will burn a lot of tokens. However, it was cheap, like 2-3 months ago. Now it's not cheap anymore. So now you should be a bit more considerate and maybe use different models for research and combine and mix them all together. And I highly recommend it to test and challenge different models and diversify your model usage, because it looks like, at least to me right now, like this is the way to go, because we cannot really rely on one ecosystem altogether. But at the end, you always have to validate the plan after the research based on the research. And never be afraid of using the agents as teachers. Don't just accept what the agent is telling you. Ask it, why? how it works. I worked so much with OAuth in the last 2-3 months to support all the different providers, Google, Figma, Anthropic, Codex, ChatGPT, even the Chinese providers. And even though there is an RFC on how OAuth should work, everybody implements it differently. But then I asked the agent, okay, then how it works, like why it is working like that. And I learned so much. Don't be afraid of learning, but you have to ask the questions. And I think AI is super powerful in teaching because it never gets tired. I worked a lot with the experts, and I was always asking questions. And they were really nice with me, but I felt that sometimes they were a bit frustrated, you know? With AI, it's never happening. So use it, learn, and if you are willing to learn, you will learn a lot in a short amount of time. It can be overwhelming, for sure, but don't be afraid of it. What I also learned is that you still need human in the loop. One of the main things is UX and UI. When you work with AI, it doesn't get the feeling, like what's feeling right. So when you ask UI features from the AI, it many times, it's trying to overcomplicate things, making a button too big or too shiny, and etc. And many times it doesn't follow the design path that you already started using in your application. So you have to revisit, like, okay, what's your goal? You want a clean and smooth user interface. Then you have to keep the consistency. And the AI is not always doing that. Of course, if you highlight that, hey, this should be consistent with other parts of the application, it will fix it. But by default, it will just focus on the solution. It's you, as a human, who has the nice touch at the end, who can tell the AI how an efficient UI looks like and what is a good UX feeling for the AI and for the users. And I learned it the hard way. So there were moments when I was blocked by touching the UI of the craft agents because my understanding of UI is not yet sophisticated enough to create a super nice user interface. But the AI gives you the power to do anything with the UI. But you have to put in the work. So actually, I spent most of my time on crafting nicer and nicer UI. Even though it was like simple changes in the code base, that's what takes up a lot of time because the AI cannot really help you with that. Like it cannot really tell you like what would feel really good for a user. You have to test it yourself. You have to see it for yourself. And that's how you learn as well how to work with it. There are a lot of new tools coming out like cloud design or the different Figma features, but they still cannot replace the human touch when it comes to UI and UX. What's also super important is rock solid rule-based checks. Yeah, you can ask the AI to check the code and see what are the issues, but if you want to be 100% sure, you use scripts or CI to validate whatever the AI is generating. And this should be rule-based. And it helps the AI as well, because you can tell the AI that do these fixes, then run the CI, and then if the CI fails, fix the checks in the CI. One thing though, the AI is clever. And for example, I was thinking I'm more clever. And what I did is I introduced pre-commit hooks so that when the AI committed, it would fail my commits if it's not correct. And it was going fine until one day I pushed, then I was about to merge and I'm seeing like the CI is failing. I'm like, how can it be failing? Like the pre-commit hook should have caught it. And then I looked back and then looked through the two calls and I saw that the AI was talking to itself. It's like, okay, the pre-commit hook is failing, but the failures are not from my change. So I just skip the pre-commit hook and just commit without -- no verify. And I said, no, this is not the right path because now you are skipping the checks that I put there exactly to avoid these type of things. So don't trust the AI. Unfortunately, that's the lesson I learned. I cannot trust it, so I have to force it sometimes to run the pre-commit hook, even though I thought it's there. So you always have to be critic. Even if you set up your CI, you have to make it rock solid, that the AI cannot skip it and bypass it. Because eventually it will say it's not his fault or its fault or whatever. It will try to surpass it. I don't think we will survive without critical thinking in the future. Critical thinking, I think, is becoming the most valuable feature of the human mind. And it's not just for working with AI, it's just surviving in the modern world nowadays, because there are so many fake things, so many information that coming at us, and critical thinking is super important. And with AI, it's just as important as it is, because AI always answers. So it will rarely say that it's wrong. It will always come up with an answer. And it will always say, oh, I skipped this because I'm thinking it's out of scope. Who asked you to think it's out of scope, right? You have to challenge the AI. You have to read what it does, and you have to always reevaluate whether it's right. If you see a different shape in the solution, you can say, okay, let's go. If the AI is pushing back, you have to push back harder, because maybe he's right? But then you have to challenge it. Why are you pushing back on this topic? Are you sure? I think this other tool is doing the same thing. Why it's not acceptable? He said, oh, right, you are right, actually, I was wrong. But that's how it works. You can go faster if you just accept everything, but I can guarantee you, and I learned it the hard way, if you do that, your code is going to collapse within days, probably, depending on how fast you produce. So it's really important to keep your critical thinking, push back where needed. So working with AI gives you a speed boost, but you still have to be responsible. You still have to build with responsibility. And what's super important, but changing, so it's different how it works, how it worked before. So Balázs is here, and he remembers, when I was opening, we were working with Gerrit in Ericsson. So basically, when you created a commit, you pushed it, and they reviewed per commit. So not per pull request, per commit. And then if you got the +2 from Balázs, you would go. And yeah, finally, it went in, right? These type of code reviews are kind of gone. But you still have to do review, because eventually AI does mistake, you do mistakes, so review is still important. But it's a bit different now. How I do it is the following. I create a plan, and as I said, plan is the most important thing in my workflow nowadays. I create the plan with Opus. Then I copy this plan and give it to GPT 5.5. Then GPT 5.5 reviews that plan, highlights that it's good, but I wouldn't merge it yet or implement it yet, of course. Then I give it back to Opus with the highlights. Opus said, yeah, it's valid points. I will revise the plan. And depending on how important or critical is the feature, I do this iteration multiple times. I may do it with multiple models. I mostly use GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.7. And depending on how deep I want to go, because it's like a Ralph Wiggum loop, you can go forever. But essentially, I fix the critical parts, and then I evaluate as a human, whether I consider those are high priority fixes or not. And when I deem it's okay, I think these are now nitpicking, I'm like, okay, let's go, start the implementation. So it's really important to do the reviews. And the cross-model reviewing, I think, is it's a holy grail of working with AI. I still open pull requests, and I still recommend you to use it. One thing, The AI agents, they work really nicely with GitHub CLI, for example. So it's really easy to just drop a pull request URL and ask the AI to review this pull request. It can really easily to see what are the changes. And even for the AI, it's really good to see like if there are any smells in the changes. So I still use pull requests. I don't really follow the AI instruction to create one pull request per issue, because I'm telling it, there's no human going to review my pull request. It will be an AI agent, and it can do multiple changes in a single pull request. Perfectly fine. So I usually, for myself, keep one single larger pull request, and even myself go through it. So that is the last habit that I still do from the old ages, is that I open the pull request and just scroll through the file changes. Just so that you know the amount and the number of changes and the files are there. Like, for example, I have caught multiple times that it actually pushed files that it shouldn't push in the commit. So I had to update the git ignore file and etc. So I still do this small manual check, because I think in a pull request for a human, it's really easy to see, that not the exact lines, but like what changes were there, which files were changed. And how did I improve with these things, with my workflow? So now I'm shipping a new release every day. Sometimes pretty good releases, sometimes a bit buggy releases, but every day. I'm trying to improve in that side, but I'm telling you, the bottleneck is me. So whether I can really test the features. I just mentioned before the presentation that some Chinese users were pushing me to add the DeepSeek v4 support to the craft agents. And I was like, okay, as the agent, let's do the DeepSeek v4 support. It implemented it, I pushed, I released, and then they said it's not really working. I was like, okay, because I didn't really test it, right? So today I was testing it. Yeah, I found some bugs, which was not really working, but I fixed it because now I tested it. And in today's release, it will go out. And finally, DeepSeek v4 is going to work properly. I learned a lot. So my learning rate increased. So I now consider myself well aware of the AI landscape, what things are working, what things are not working, and where the industry is heading. So I feel like this is a valuable know-how that I can pass on and tell people like what I learned, exactly what I'm doing now. And I don't think there are anything that I would say no to do. Like if you ask me to create a Rust OS or a Rust-based operating system, I would say, well, sure, I will jump on it. Let's do it. If you tell me write it in Haskell, sure, I can do it. Because I know the basic concepts, like what I want to achieve. I know what I expect from an operating system, file management, network management, and etc. And the language is not an obstacle anymore. I don't have to know the language. I have to know the high-level concepts that I want to implement. And that's really important. You have to understand the architecture you want to achieve, and everything else, the AI can help you. But not everything is great, right? So I had issues like cognitive load. I work on 5-6 things parallel. And even for me, it's pretty challenging. So I'm struggling sometimes. And even though I'm faster, because of the speed, I also have more pressure. And I also realize when I work on parallel things, it's harder to reach flow state. I like to focus on one thing and get in the flow and do that thing. So if I do major refactors, I usually only work on them. When I do bug fixes, I do 10 parallel. That's fine. And then the testing is tricky. Then I have to go in flow state for sure. And the main takeaways is that changing tools is super fast. Using Cloud Code versus Craft Agents versus Codex app, really easy. I can swap within a day if it's needed. But the mental model, like how to work with the AI, what to expect from the AI, that's what takes some time. And it took me 1-2 months heavy working with AI, like daily 10, 12 hours, even during weekends. But it helped. However, I still think as humans, we have a lot to do. And if you have a builder's mindset, you can achieve great things with the help of the AI. And the AI itself, yes, for sure, can do a lot of things, but it still needs that human touch at the moment, at least. So if you want to create great things, it will be a collaboration between AI and human. And I think so far, I'm really happy what I'm doing. I really love what I'm doing, and I'm really satisfied what I'm doing. So if you are interested, then you can just look up on GitHub, the Craft Agents OSS repository. You can see what I have been working on mainly, and you can also find me on LinkedIn if you wish. And I think we will have a Q&A session after Felhő's presentation, but you can find the Craft Docs webpage if you want on this QR code. And I thank you for your attention. And now I will give the stage to Felhő.